Miami keeps crushing the portal, and I keep having one question.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, and thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. If you're watching on YouTube, it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. LSU lost a 4-star wide receiver to a school I bet you won't guess unless you watch the third segment first before the second segment. It's all going to make sense on today's show, I promise. It's brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, Miami's thriving in the portal. They're having a great transfer portal class. They have brought in 19 guys. 19 guys. The number 3 class in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. Some of that is volume driven, but certainly not all of it. And here's what I appreciate about Miami's transfer portal class. We'll talk more about Mohamed Toure here in just a moment. This is a consistent theme for me in the offseason on this show. When you have a weakness and it's clear and identifiable, don't wait for it to magically get better. Don't hope it will improve. Go make it better. Whether that means, we're going to recruit a bunch of high school kids, which you should, and set ourselves up for, a rebuild in a couple years, depending on the timeline of where the coaching staff is at, or, hey, we need to go get players who can help us win right here, right now. Miami's more in the second category. They should still be in the first as well. Some programs can walk and chew gum at the same time. Not all of them can. Miami is showing you that they can because they recruit at a high level year in and year out. We'll see if they end up getting Jackson Cantwell, number 1 offensive tackle in the class of 2026. Still, Mario Cristobal can recruit pretty well. That's been well established in the sport over several years. But when you look at the transfer portal class, they got a lot of guys on defense. Why? Because in the ACC last year, which has some good offenses, but not as good as everybody else all the time, they gave up over 25 points per game on average. And we saw this whether it was the Cal game or the Duke game where they had to stage comebacks on the back of Cam Ward. You have a high-profile quarterback transfer in Carson Beck. That's really, really good news. And that's part of the reason I support them going into a win-now mentality. You went out and paid top dollar for Carson Beck, however many millions of dollars it exactly was. I don't know. I can confidently say it was more than 2 and probably more than 3 and probably close to 4. But again, I don't know for certain because I haven't been told firsthand. But based on the reporting, that's the indication. You make that sort of investment, you don't want a repeat of last year where you're relying on your quarterback to save you for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's not sustainable. We saw that last year. Miami was a lock to the playoff right until they weren't because they lost on the road at Syracuse at the end of the year. We can debate whether or not they should have gotten in at 10-2, but the fact of the matter is they didn't. I didn't have a huge objection to them not getting in. But fact number 2 is, hey, you have Carson Beck, not Cam Ward. Carson Beck can't do everything Cam Ward did. He can do a lot of things for you. He can be one of the 5-10 best quarterbacks in all of college football. He is not going to be able to save your entire team the way Cam Ward did regularly last year. So the latest portal addition for Miami is Mohamed Toure at linebacker. In addition, they also added Keontae Scott, transfer DB from Houston. They have added Xavier Lucas, the most hilarious transfer portal player in the country, who showed the portal doesn't actually have to exist if you don't want it to. And because he just, unenrolled from Wisconsin when they wouldn't let him transfer and then just enrolled at Miami and then joined the football team. Yeah, funny how all of that works. But Toure is the latest addition. There is definitely some risk here because he's coming off of, he's battled injuries throughout his career. But again, I like this move from Miami, going out, attacking the weakness, which was their defense. We all saw it last year. Alex Dono of Locked On Canes likes the move. Here's what he has to say.
The latest and probably final transfer portal addition for the Miami Hurricanes in 2025 is Rutgers linebacker Mohamed Toure. This was a really important get for Miami. There was a need at linebacker. Miami's top linebacker of the past 2 seasons, Kiko Maui Noah. They lost him to the NFL, to the New York Jets in the 5th round So the Hurricanes needed somebody with experience, a proven track record, and it also helps that he's got a connection to Miami's defensive coordinator. So enter Mohamed Toure, who, if he can re-achieve his potential that he showed a couple of years ago, potential, he proved it on the field. If he can get back to what he was in 2023, Toure can become one of the best linebackers in the ACC. I don't think there's any question of that. Was one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten. So the last time he played a full season, 2023 with Rutgers, he led the team with 4.5 sacks, led the team with 10 tackles for loss, was second on the team with 92 total tackles. He added an interception and a forced fumble that year. So with Toure, I keep mentioning 2 years ago, 2023, did not play last season due to an ACL injury, missed the entire 2024 year. Now, my understanding is Toure is fully recovered and physically he's ready to go. So it's going to be about, returning to that sort of form when he was one of the better linebackers in a Power 2 conference a couple of years ago, and hopefully reuniting with Corey Heatherman, who was his linebackers coach at Rutgers and is Miami's defensive coordinator now, is going to help him hit the ground running. So I expect Toure, everybody has to compete, but I could definitely see him winning a starting job at Miami. He can play inside or out, but I see him as a will linebacker with the Hurricanes. He's very disruptive. I've gone down some Toure rabbit holes from his 2023 season. If you watch what he did against Ohio State a couple of years ago, you'll be very impressed. So this was an important and welcomed addition to Miami. And as mentioned, well, you never know these days, but I think this was the last ad Miami's going to make in the transfer portal.
Yeah, you think so. But, they brought in Shamar Brown, the running back from North Dakota State. They have brought in 10 defensive transfers total, 7 in the defensive backfield. Attacking a weakness. I'm here for it. And the reality for the Hurricanes with a change on their defensive staff is they have to be better if they even want to replicate their win total from a year ago. And their schedule does them no favors. They have one of the least favorable schedules in all of the ACC. Their buys 2 and 3 weeks, then they play 7 straight games in conference to end the year. The last 2 are on the road. It's not ideal. And so last year, you came up short of where you are expecting to be as a program with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Well, you don't have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Carson Beck is incredibly talented, NFL traits. He's not going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. He's not going to do everything Cam Ward did. You have to have a more balanced team, and Miami has done everything I think that they can, or at least they have done a lot of things well in the transfer portal to go out and try and just be a better version of what they were a season ago. You will take a step back from your quarterback production, but still be really good. So your defense has to take a step forward to just be at the same level, and then you have to battle the schedule. So good news if you're a Hurricanes fan. Not as good news if you are an LSU fan, because LSU just had a recruit flip away, and it's just not to the school you would expect. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Do you know which players are showing up in the big moments? Do you know who's winning the games? Well, then FanDuel is the place to go. And if you want to bet college football, which you can bet individual games, win totals, conference title odds, national championship odds. It's all over there. And you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. That's a pretty good deal. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Jakai Anderson is not planning to be an LSU Tiger. He's planning to go to SMU. Brian Smith from the Portal podcast and a longtime recruiting analyst is here to discuss that. This is not a flip I think most people really had on their bingo cards, Brian, because SMU walks into LSU's backyard and grabs a blue chip wide receiver prospect of all the places. What's your initial take on what's happening here?
does ice cream taste bad now? Is the world just changed that much? I mean, like
Bad ice cream tastes bad.
Okay, well, I've really never had bad ice cream. That's hard to do. I mean, you really got to screw up.
You do.
But
You do.
I don't know, man. Like when I saw this, I literally did a double take. I'm like, nobody from New Orleans that commits to LSU ends up at SMU. No offense. That's just not how this world works, let alone a 4-star receiver. Name a position that a school's done better at than LSU at wide receiver in the last half dozen years.
Ohio State at wide receiver.
They're like one. Those two are like.
Yeah.
1A.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, 5 years wouldn't technically include the Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase years. Technically. I get the point you're making. But from a positional standpoint, I don't know that there are a lot of other ones, quite frankly. Washington with defensive backs had a great run there for a while. It's kind of fizzled the last couple of years, but it was really good. I mean, there are not many. There are not many, to your point.
Yeah, so when I saw that, I'm like, did he do something, or is there something I don't know about? Because LSU needs receivers too, and they always recruit the Big Easy hard. So this is as perplexing as it gets. But, number one, SMU made the playoff last year. LSU did not. You got to give them credit for that. Number two, they've got Rhett Lashley and a pretty good passing game. And number three, this isn't going to shock anybody. It's probably a little easier to obtain early playing time in Dallas. Not picking on SMU again, but LSU's wide receiver room, it's gross all the time. It's just really, really good. So those are my possibilities, but something is still very odd to me because I have a hard time seeing a kid from Louisiana turning down the Tigers after being committed and ending up with the Mustangs. You tell me where I'm wrong there.
Yeah, I don't think you are. I had a couple different thoughts that I want your reaction to for this kid. The first one I had was NIL, and I don't think that's some big, horrible, dirty word or anything like that when used in this context. I know plenty of people do see it that way, but SMU's pockets are as deep as literally any donor base in the country. Give me any school, you can put SMU up against them. I had that thought. I had the thought of, he's a 4-star receiver, but is he really that good? Or the third thought I had was what you brought up, which is, well, it's LSU and it's probably easier to go and play as a true freshman. So let's start with the NIL angle. Do you think that is primarily what came into play here? A factor, your take?
It has to be at least some factor. I'm not saying it's top of the totem pole, but do you think LSU might be looking at the hometown discount? They probably try to get that. Don't kid yourself. You're trying to get some money saved back for the next portal, for out-of-state kids, etc. And maybe he said he wanted more, and they said no. Would that surprise me? Not at all. Secondarily, again, like your point, I want to reiterate, I've heard the same thing that Spence has heard. Their NIL base at SMU is legit, so do not discount it.
Yeah, and the other thought, is he just an okay prospect? Because I don't feel like LSU goes after just okay receivers, generally speaking. I mean, what do you make of this guy as a college receiver?
I mean, I think he should be very good. I mean, where he's from, I've seen some of his film, kind of fits the profile. Is there something I'm missing? I mean, I'm not the end-all be-all in this, and maybe LSU is going to get somebody else. That's possible. But as a rule, there's an old rule in this. If you're going to push somebody out of your class, doesn't matter the position, where they're from matters. If it's a kid from New Orleans, do you think LSU is going to push a New Orleans kid out? If they did, that's very politically risky. I can tell you firsthand that will not go over well with very important people down there. So I don't think that's what it is. I could be wrong, but I highly doubt that's the case.
I think the impact here for SMU is equally as large on the field because you have, someone that can come and be a part of your passing offense right away in 2026. I think it's equally, if not more impactful of kind of the big picture takeaway for Rhett Lashley and company, that they just walked into LSU's backyard and said, we're going to take that guy. I don't care what the reasoning is. Like, This is a new phenomenon that someone would, at any position, let alone wide receiver, would flip from LSU to SMU. And to your point, one team was in the playoff last year, one was not. Who's got a top 5 transfer portal class, top 2 transfer portal class this cycle? The LSU Tigers. Who's got, playoff expectations? You can argue that both of them do, but the other thing that popped into my head, Brian, when this happened was the Bryce Underwood situation and, how that went down, because that was primarily based on what I have seen and been told, primarily based on NIL. That Bryce Underwood flipped to Michigan. He might be the Wolverines starting quarterback this fall. I hope that he is. But after that happened, I kind of got the sense that the donor base in Baton Rouge collectively got together and said, we can't let this happen anymore. I don't care if it's Michigan. I don't care if it's Oregon, Ohio State, anybody. Like, we can't be out here getting outbid for these sorts of kids. And when you go out and get a highly rated transfer portal class, you have to have NIL dollars, right? So that's why, we're talking about it on the show today, because SMU going out and doing this, I think, speaks to what their NIL collective has, but also speaks to the brand power that they're starting to accumulate in the eyes of college football recruits.
Yeah, I think it matters that they went to the playoff, and like SMU went and out spent some money. They got some good players. They've already got some good commitments. They just barely lost out to a Notre Dame on a big-time defensive tackle recruit recently. When was the last time SMU was in contention for a big-time defensive tackle? I mean, I don't remember it. They changed their face through NIL and winning. They weren't projected to do what they did last year. They went out and kicked some butt. Good for them. I think it's kind of cool for college football. And now they're getting in on lists and getting visits from kids that 2-3 years ago would have been a pipe dream. So let's give them a little credit. They deserve it. And it wouldn't shock me. They got Jennings back and they got some other good players, Lashley back. They should be getting more of these kids because they should be pretty good again this year, I think. Of course, anything's possible in college football in the portal era, but I still think that way. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a few more flips like this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and what's unique about SMU, Brian, is they're the ACC school in Texas, the only one. And for whatever that's worth to kids, the idea of going and playing on the East Coast is something that SMU can sell. That might be a detraction for some kids, but for other kids it might be unique because you might have a better shot of playing right away or competing for a conference championship more quickly at SMU than maybe you would at some of the Big 12 schools. So I think competition-wise, you're on similar footing, Big 12 and the ACC. I'm not saying identical. I'm just saying similar, which I think can be a real selling point of, hey, we're not the Big 10, we're not the SEC, but you know what that means? You can compete for playing time as a true freshman. You'll be a full-time starter by the time you're a true sophomore. And at the Big 10 SEC schools, depending on which one you go to, it might not be the case. And when you're going to the Big 12, it's a lot harder to sell the conference championship pedigree because everybody can do it, right? The competitive balance over there is much more significant. SMU could go to 3 conference championship games in their first 5 years in the league, and I wouldn't be shocked. They're already 1-for-1.
You hit on all the points, really. The playing time is a big deal. East Coast, they just won. They're in Dallas. It's got a rich alumni base. Like, all that stuff matters. Kids are more savvy, and they're not quite as loyal as they used to be. You can look at any state, even Louisiana, which is one of the hardest to get players out of. More kids leave than ever out of their home base. State of Florida, over half the kids leave. When I was growing up, I got of the top 25, 30 kids in Florida, minimum 20 of those kids were going to Florida State, or Miami. Those days are over. So there are a lot of reasons to see it. It's kind of cool in its own way because, as you like to say, it's the greatest sport on earth because college football is so unpredictable. This is another piece to that puzzle. Absolutely.
And by the way, everybody, if you thought I was done talking about the connection between these two schools, wrong you would be. Because SMU and LSU, heck, you could have this guy on the field in the next time these two teams meet. You never know. You never know. I love what they did, but also hate what these schools just did. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. All-in-one convenience is what they're all about. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, you can track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Check them out at monarchmoney.com. Strange connections, because LSU and SMU are apparently going after the same kids on the trail, and they're going to play each other. So Jakai Anderson might, we don't know with the transfer portal, of course, still be on the field when these teams play their home-and-home series in 2028 and 2029. There will be one game in Baton Rouge, one game at SMU Stadium. So I a couple of thoughts here. I love these sorts of matchups. They're great. SMU, LSU, non-conference game with major national appeal. You have got a program that just made the college football playoff in the 12-team era in the first season of its existence. You've got a program that needs to make the playoff this year, or else the pressure is going to ratchet up on their big-time, highly paid head coach. So these are two brands that I think, just forget the SEC, ACC component, because when I talk about non-conference matchups and good ones, I'm not as concerned with this conference against this conference or that conference against this conference or anything like that. I like brands. I like teams that interest me, that provide national audiences. And this is one of those games. It won't happen for several years. But yesterday on the show, I did a segment talking about Clemson and Notre Dame. And I had a couple people comment about whether this means Notre Dame is making a play to get into the SEC or the ACC or anything like that. I don't think that's what it's about at all. And I'm just judging the net outcome here. Gross outcome, really, if I were to use the full golf terminology. But the gross domestic output of these games is we as college football fans, you, me, and millions of others, get games that when you peruse the first 3 weeks of the season, you circle and go, oh, I want to watch that one. And Brian Kelly hasn't been shy about playing these games. In his 3 years as LSU's head coach, he's going into year 4, he has played Florida State, and USC. Sign me. I mean, slowly but surely. I know a lot of people don't like Brian Kelly for various reasons. He's becoming one of my favorite coaches in the country because he's willing to play these sorts of games. LSU is a premier Tier 1 brand in college football that has the ability to be a Tier 1 team in college football. We'll see if they do that this year. They have a really good chance with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback, of course, and what should be a really talented roster around him. But SMU is trying to elevate into that tier. They're trying to ascend back to what they were in a time before I was even born, and many of you were big college football fans, I'm sure. So that matchup, I think, is interesting. Even though this is projecting a few years down the line, there's no reason. I mean, heck, both of these coaches might not be around. There's a fun thought experiment for you. Which coach is less likely to be in his current position when this home and home series starts playing in 2028? I like that they're doing it on campuses, that they're not doing this neutral site nonsense where you remove one of the special elements of college football. I get why those games exist. I don't particularly care for it. Give me a home game, give me a road game, 1 year, bing, bang, boom, we're done. So I like that element of it. But I think the answer right now feels like Brian Kelly is less likely, even though the buyout is tricky. This is, of course, several years away, starting 3 seasons from now. So we'll play 3 seasons of college football. Then we'll circle back to this game here on the show, and we'll talk about it at the time, of course. But those are the things I like about it. You get good matchups because sometimes in those first 3 weeks, you can look at week 1, 2, or 3. Week 0 is never usually a ton. I mean, last year, top 10 team lost, of course, in Florida State. But week 1, 2, and 3, it can be hit and miss. I want those weeks to be hits. Now, let's get to the other side of this. Why, I repeat, why does this need to be something we do so many years in advance? I appreciate, I'm trying to give these schools the credit they deserve, that these games are happening, that they're going to be played, or at least scheduled to be played, barring a change in unforeseen circumstances, which can happen, but not super often. Why do we have to wait? What if this announcement, this is what I want you to think about out there, anybody listening to or watching this show. Why do we have to wait to schedule these sorts of games? Why must they be done several years in advance? I don't want to hear from athletic departments about the travel concerns, that you have to know ahead of time. No, you don't. Okay, you don't. Whenever teams or schools at any level of college football get in a pinch, or suddenly there's a pressing financial need, BYU recently canceled a bye game with an FCS program because when they joined the Big 12, they had different scheduling needs. Funny how they were able to make that change. I have long pushed back on and will continue to push back on this absurd, outdated notion that college football games of the non-conference variety have to be scheduled many years in advance. They don't. It's just the way that it's always been done. There is no reason, even if, and I would like for a centralized governing body that sets the schedules for the schools and gives everyone one FCS, one group of 5, and one Power 4 non-conference matchup, and then everybody plays 9 conference games. That's what I want. That's my ideal world. I don't know that we will ever get there necessarily, but hey, a boy can dream. So I would like for that to be the case. But even if you leave scheduling in the hands of individual schools, which happens in literally no other sport, it's strange, it's odd, and it's not college football is special and better because it's different than the other sports. It's more of one of those, yeah, that doesn't really make any sense. I don't know why we're doing it that way. So the idea that you're going to schedule these so many years in advance instead of right here, right now, I would love for this game to be scheduled right here, right now. It's interesting in 2028 and 29, no doubt about it. It'd be even more interesting if we could get it in 2025. Can you imagine Brian Kelly week 1 in a season where I think plenty of LSU fans justifiably would say playoff or bust? At least they would say playoff or you're on the hot seat. If week 1 he's got to go up against a team that's returning its quarterback that just flipped a blue chip receiver from in its own state? What if SMU went to Death Valley? Or what if LSU went to Dallas? What if that happened? That's more exciting, right? That'd be more interesting. So creating these sorts of matchups, there are all sorts of scheduling desires I have that I don't know if they'll ever come to fruition. For example, if a coach leaves a school to go be the coach at another school, like, for example, Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to LSU, or Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma to go to USC, Mario Cristobal leaving Oregon to go to Miami, that new school, provided they're at the same level, Power 4 versus Group of 5 versus FCS, those two schools should be required to play, and the coach or the school that the coach left should be the home team. That's what I want in college football. If you gave me the power, that's what I would start setting up. Can you imagine right after Lincoln Riley left, if the Trojans went to Norman to play Oklahoma? Who isn't watching that? Who doesn't want to see that? I want to see that. Sounds like a heck of a lot of fun. So I applaud LSU. I applaud SMU for going out and giving us a game that we want. I still begrudge the college football landscape for making us do this nonsense 3-5 years in advance before we can start this stuff. Just do it now. Just say, hey, home and home. This year, next year, boom. We can do it on a 1 to 2 year rolling basis. That is my dream. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.